Greetings, car fanatics. This is my 2008 Porsche Cayenne Turbo with over 118,000 miles on it. In October of 2022, I made a video that documented every single issue this vehicle has had, and it totaled $23,000. That video was very popular, so I'm making a part 2 to walk you through all the issues and maintenance work I've done to the vehicle since then. Then we're going to jump back into all the issues this vehicle has had all the way from when it was new, and then I'm going to walk through all the modifications I've done to this car. Let's go ahead and jump into the video. Alright, the first big expense I had since 2022 were updating the tires and the wheels. So starting with the tires, I replaced the Continental DWS-06 tires that I had on the car for about 6 years and put on 45,000 miles with these Michelin Pilot All-Season 4s, and these are very expensive tires because of the rim size. It's a 21-inch wheel and the tire is a 295 width tire. So these tires ran me almost $1,900 just for the tires. Now that's really expensive for tires, but I do recommend getting a good set of tires for your performance vehicle because it makes a big difference in safety as well as the driving dynamics of your vehicle. And then I had the wheels powder coated for another $600, so in total I spent over $2,300 just refinishing the wheels and getting new tires. Next, I replaced the front brakes myself. I spent about $350 on new Zimmerman rotors and power stop brake pads. If I were to take it to an independent mechanic, we're looking at probably at least $1,000 just to do the front brakes, so I saved myself a little bit of money. Moving on to the engine, I did perform an oil change myself. That was about $70. I do have some maintenance coming up. The spark plugs and ignition coils are due soon. That's going to cost me about another $500. And then I need to replace this engine torque damper at the same time because these wore out every 30 or 40,000 miles, and that's going to be about another $100. And then I do have a new issue on the car. I haven't fixed it yet, but the engine's leaking a little bit of oil. I'm pretty sure it's coming from these valve cover gaskets. It's a common issue on these V8 motors, but you can do it yourself or take it to an independent mechanic. I think it's going to cost over $1,000 if I were to take it to an independent mechanic, maybe $1,500 or so. But that's something I haven't had to repair just yet because it hasn't been leaking that much oil, but in the near future I'm going to have to do that, so that's going to be a big expense. Now moving on to the windshield, I had to replace it. I did use a Fuyao, so I was able to get the windshield replaced for $300 versus using the OEM glass, which would have been at least $1,500. Sure, in the perfect world, I would have liked an OEM windshield on this car, but it was just too expensive, and if I'm going to get another rot chip, I'd rather much replace this windshield for $300 than spend all that money on the OEM glass. The next new issues since 2022 are in the car. So let's go ahead and take a look at our headliner. So as you can see, the material is just sagging from the actual headliner. This is a very common problem on the 955 and 957 Cayennes. I have someone who's going to replace this material. It's going to be $800, but that's something I need to budget. And yeah, kind of just an annoying problem to have. The next issue is with the sunglass holder, which I documented in my 2022 video. After that, I replaced the button which was broken, and then this worked perfectly. However, the plastic that the button clips into, that broke. So unless I can somehow repair that plastic, I'm going to have to replace this entire unit just to get this to work. That's going to be a pretty annoying fix. I think in the meantime, I'll just put a piece of tape to keep that button in place. That way I can use this. But the interior plastics are definitely not a strong point on these 955 and 957 Cayennes. The other issue to highlight with the interior, which isn't new, but I definitely want to highlight it, is the soft touch finish on a lot of these buttons. So my steering wheel, the soft touch is okay, but we have the same soft touch trim in other places where it's starting to just get sticky. It's starting to wear off. So you can see here that it's the same material over here, and that's getting all sticky and scratched up. And then on this side of the window switch, a lot of it is just peeling off. So you do have a lot of this soft touch stuff that's just falling apart. Kind of a common thing on these cars. Alright, so as you can see, we put about $3,000 into the car since 2022, but if I were to repair the leaky valve cover and also the headliner, we're we're talking about another $2,000 in repairs. Let's go ahead and jump into all the other issues this vehicle has had since the very beginning of its life. All right, so the very first issue we had with this car occurred at 19,000 miles, and that was with the parking brake. There was a parking brake dampener that was bad, and that was replaced under warranty. Now, the next issue occurred at 26,000 miles, and that had to do with a coolant leak and a thermostat. So just behind this area, you have the water pump, the thermostat, and all of that keeps the engine cool. That had a leak, and it had to be replaced, and that was also done under warranty. Now, at 32,000 miles, the original owner was experiencing condensation in the driver's side daytime running light. That was replaced, also under warranty. Then at 40,000 miles, we had an issue with the high pressure fuel pump, which is somewhere in that area, but essentially the car wasn't starting consistently, and that was also replaced under warranty. Then just 1,000 miles later, at 41,000 miles, the owner had an issue with the door cable. He wasn't able to open it. It basically was the door cable that went out, and that was also replaced under warranty. Then from there, the car really didn't have too many issues for another 16,000 miles, but at 57,000 miles, the car had the infamous issue with the driveshaft support bearing. And unfortunately, because they didn't catch the issue quick enough, this driveshaft was also damaged and it had to be replaced. Then just 2,000 miles later, the front horn went out and that had to be replaced. And while we're here, I'll show you the next issue. Well, guess what? At 65,000 miles, we had yet again another coolant leak that had to do with the thermostat and the water pump. The thermostat had to be replaced along with the gasket, and unfortunately that wasn't under warranty. And then just 5,000 miles later, at a little over 70,000 miles, when I took ownership of the car, I was driving on the highway, and guess what? One of these ignition coils located below this cover over here went out, and basically I had the check engine light flashing. The engine was sputtering and wasn't really making good power, and I had to pull over and get the car towed. But that cost me a good $621 doing it myself. Then for the next 10,000 miles, my ownership experience was pretty good, but at 80,000 miles, I actually had an issue with a vacuum pump over here. It's all the way back there, but that had to be replaced. I did at the time have an aftermarket warranty, but without it, this would have been a pretty expensive job. And then guess what? At 83,000 miles, just a few thousand miles later, we had another issue with the engine. And what do you guess it was? Another coolant leak. This time, the thermostat housing, the thermostat, the coolant reservoir, all of that had to be replaced because it was leaking coolant all over the floor. So that was the third time this car has had an issue with that. And then we're going to make our way over to the driver's side mirror over here. At around 85,000 miles, the side mirror was malfunctioning. So when you put the car in reverse, the mirror tilts, and then when you put it back into forward, it goes back to its original position, or that's at least what it's supposed to do. Unfortunately, with mine, the mirror was not returning back to the correct position. I actually didn't spend any money to fix it because what I did was I took the motor from the other side of the car and I just swapped it here, and guess what? That fixed the issue, and I have the bad motor on the other side, but the other side doesn't tilt like this, so I never really run into the issue anymore. And then the next thing I had go wrong with the car was at 90,000 miles, and you know what it was? The driveshaft support bearing again, but that's because the first time it was replaced with the OEM one, which is prone to wearing out. So my mechanic actually caught it just in time and was able to replace just the bearing itself and not the entire drive shaft. And while the mechanic replaced the drive shaft support bearing, we also noticed that the control arms in the front had play in them. So then he replaced the control arms in the front, the strut mount over there, and then the various bushings underneath. And that came out to a whopping nearly $2,200. And then after that, I was able to get about 15,000 miles without any issues whatsoever with the car. But then I started to notice a little bit of vibration when I was driving and when I would be stopped. And after doing some diagnosis, the mechanic realized that it was the engine mounts and the transmission mount that were going bad. So because I had the aftermarket warranty, he was able to get that covered. Without that, I would have had a whopping $3,300 bill to replace the engine and the transmission mounts, and that's because this whole engine has to be dropped. And then as we make our way to the back, at 109,000 miles, I went on a road trip from Phoenix to Dallas, and when I got there, the back wheels were making some noise. Well, guess what it was? The right rear wheel bearing over here. So that was replaced, and out of precaution, we did the other side, and that came out to a good $2,000. And then shortly after I replaced the wheel bearings, guess what I had happen? I actually had water intrusion into the cabin. So these different drain ports all over the car, they get plugged up, and then when water comes, it can't flow how it normally would. It builds up, it accumulates up in the sunroof, and it drains into the car. And then my carpet over here was all wet. I had to dry it out, and then you can see I got a little bit of water damage on the leather from the water kind of dripping through. But that was an annoying issue. It should be addressed during routine maintenance, but in my case, I caught it after the fact. But gratefully for all you guys have a really good DIY video so you can clear these drain ports and keep water out of your cabin. And the most recent issue I had with the car was that it would turn off randomly when idling, and it turns out it was a bad crankshaft positioning sensor. It's all the way like on the back side of the motor near the transmission, and this was something I researched. I found that that was the issue, but I bought the sensor for about 50 bucks. I was able to do all the work from up here and then below the car and replace that, but now the engine works well. Now let's talk about some other issues that are pretty common and ones that I've experienced. So when we move to the back seat, we have these seat back covers on the seats, and these are prone to coming off. So with the heat and over time, the glue breaks down, and then this thing just falls back. And if you don't catch it soon enough, it'll break these clips down there, and then you have a whole mess trying to put it back. If you do catch it early, you can't just put some super glue, put it back, and it'll be nice and good. And then when we go back here, we have an issue with the cup holder. So you push it and it doesn't come out, but you have to pull it and then it comes out. So that's kind of a annoying issue, but it still works. In addition, there's a cover down here and that completely broke off, but that's a pretty common issue that happens based on how this is designed over there. And moving to the front of the car, let me show you what's going on over here. So over here, we have the issue with the sunglass visor. You have this little clip in here that kind of keeps it in, and then over time, this clip breaks off like we have here. But that's a quick fix. I actually bought the part, and I'm going to fix it, but that stops this from staying upright. And then the final issue I want to mention is with the PCM system. So sometimes when you turn on the car, this doesn't happen that often, but it will say, PCM system unavailable. And basically you can't get any music or anything like that, but then I shut off the car and I turn it back on and it works. So that's a very minor issue. Some people have had their PCM units go out, but fortunately mine is still functioning. All right, so this 17-year-old Cayenne has had nearly $26,000 in work done to it, and we need to budget another $2 to $3 grand to take care of the leaky engine valve cover, the headliner, and then doing some other maintenance on the car. Now let's jump to the fun part of the video and talk about the modifications I've done to this car recently. So starting with the exterior, I plasti dipped all of that silver aluminum trim so it's now nice and black and gives it that sporty look. In addition, I painted the door handles here. This used to be aluminum, but I painted it black just to match everything, and I think that looks nice and sporty. Moving around back, we have the plasti dipped Cayenne Turbo badge. I also have the modified Gundo Hack exhaust. Let's go ahead and take a look at that exhaust clip. Moving to the interior, we have the Alcantara wrapped steering wheel, and in person, the steering wheel material matches the interior a lot better, but for some reason in the video it has this really red color to it, but it's just a slightly off gray from the rest of the interior. But I did purchase this steering wheel cover for about 60 bucks and wrapped the steering wheel myself. We also have our Cayenne GTS seats in the front, so you have your suede inserts in the middle and extra bolstering on the seats and a lot more support. And they're also a lot more comfortable than the stock seats that don't really keep you gripped too well. These are definitely the favorite mod I have done to the car because it just feels so good every single time you get in the car. We also have the Race Chip XLR. This is a pedal tuner. It allows us to make the pedal more aggressive. So in the sport setting, it really gets rid of a lot of the lag that is inherently built into the accelerator to give you better gas mileage. So I really like that. So that's a really cool mod. And lastly, I put some paint protection film on the headlight. I did this years ago. I refinished the headlights and got rid of a lot of the imperfections and scratches and stuff like that, and covered them in the 3M wrapping over here. It's still looking good after probably 7 years or so, but the film is starting to yellow, so I'll probably have to replace that at some point. Alright, car fanatics, that is the update on my 17-year-old Porsche Cayenne Turbo with over 118,000 miles on it. As you can see, even though they're cheap to buy because they're expensive to maintain and drive. But you know what? After 17 years, this car still looks good to me. I think it drives great. I really love it and hope to maintain it. If you're looking for one, definitely do your research. This video is a great starting point. Know the common issues on these cars and really know what you're getting into. You're definitely not getting a bargain. They are cheap to buy, but you're going to want a budget $2,000 to $3,000 a year to keep it up and running. Well, thanks for watching, car fanatics. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Leave any comments or questions below and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you're notified each time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching.